What's up everybody? Welcome to the Civilian Ops channel. Today we are following up with the P365X build. In the last video, we actually went over the firearm in its very stock configuration. However, today we're going to be adding something which I think is pretty detrimental, and that's going to be the TLR7 sub weapon mounted light. Before we get into installing it, we're going to clear the firearm. Of course, there's nothing in the chamber. There's no magazine. That crisp P365 trigger, man, I love it. All right, here is the TLR7 sub. Now this is from Streamlight and it's gonna mount here on this proprietary SIG rail. Hopefully it does look good once the build is all finished, but let's get into opening this real quick, show you guys what's inside. There's not much to the packaging. It's pretty much a bunch of plastic. And I think there's supposed to be, yeah, there we go, some stickers. And then we've got like a small rail key here, which is gonna be to adjust it. And as you can tell, mine is sort of chewed up. So instead, I actually use a quarter. I'll show you what that's for here in a second. So we have the light itself. It does come with a battery, which is, wow, Streamlight branded. Look at that, fancy. And then these are extra buttons. To put this on, it's got this proprietary SIG rail here, which made specifically for the SIG P365. You can kind of push this, as you can tell here, to sort of open it up like that. Put on the firearm, it should be relatively simple. Just make sure this is loose enough. Make sure it kind of just grabs like that, and you want to kind of push it all the way back and back it up against the trigger guard right there. Now this is where the quarter is going to come in handy. Pretty much all you're going to want to do is just tighten this little screw right here, and you can see here a coin is going to work perfectly for it. Now the one thing with this light is it never seems to sit flush from what I can tell. It always seems to have a little bit of play. It's about as best we're gonna get. Now this looks really, really good. I absolutely love the way this looks. I think it's really gonna look good. It looks a little bit weird now because we don't have an optic on it, but I think it's gonna look good once we put an optic on. Now to install the battery, it's gonna be really, really simple. You're just gonna twist this cap off right here. There's a little rubber seal on here, which is gonna keep the rain and water out. And you're gonna put this in with the positive in first, and sort of just screw this back on. And just like that, the light is installed. So I did want to show you what the Streamlight actually comes with. So if you don't want to use these big buttons that I have on there, you have the option to swap out to these smaller ones. And it's real simple. So when you have this off the firearm, you're gonna basically use a little pin to pop this out, and you can actually use the adjuster piece here. You can use the metal tip of this to just kind of stab it and remove the bar. And when you remove the bar, it's going to remove these buttons. If you don't want to use these buttons, you can see the difference here between the larger ones here, which are really easy to activate if you have chunkier fingers like myself. Just kind of push that in there. Just so you can see the different styles there. I personally prefer the larger button here just because you can see the surface here is much better on the larger button. If you guys do own the TLR7 sub, you do have the strobe feature, but you have to activate it first. And in order to activate it, you have to press the button 10 times and then hold it down on the 10th time. And once you do that, it should turn on the strobe feature. Now after that, to activate the strobe feature, you're just gonna double press the button. So you can see you could strobe it like that, and then you can go back to normal, single press, turn it back off, double press, you could strobe it, and then back to normal. I absolutely love this Streamlight. It's got a ton of throw, a ton of lumens, 500 lumens. I wanna say we're a good 50 feet from this drying machine here. I'm gonna kill the light and I'm gonna activate the light on the firearm and show you how bright it is and also how long the throw is. You can absolutely use this to identify a target long range. It's got a bunch of throw. Now we are in the dark. I'm gonna light up the room with just the light alone. Look at that. Now why would you start with a weapon mounted light as the very first mod on your everyday carry pistol? Well, for an EDC, you're gonna wanna carry it in a high quality holster. It's a given, but you can't get a holster that fits your firearm if you're planning on getting a holster that fits a firearm with a weapon mounted light. The holster is actually going to put all the retention on the light itself and not the trigger guard. So once you add that light, all the retention is coming on from the flashlight itself. So you're gonna wanna order a holster based on the light that you wanna get for the firearm that you currently have. After that, you can go ahead and put on the optic or whatever else you wanna modify on the firearm, because you just wanna make sure it's gonna fit in a high quality holster. Now, the one downside to carrying a weapon mounted light in a holster, there is a little bit of a gap between the trigger guard and the holster itself. I'll show you a picture here on screen. That is something to take into consideration. It's not enough for you to stick a finger in there or an item in there to actually pull the trigger on accident, but it is something that you do have to live with, so make that decision on your own. I personally think it's better to have a weapon mounted light. However, this shouldn't be your only light. And what I mean by that is you should always carry some small handheld light, because if you do try to identify a target, you can't just be pointing a loaded weapon at somebody with a flashlight on it just to try to identify them. The likelihood of you using this in a self-defense shooting, I can't say for sure. I just know that if it's really dark and I need a flashlight, it's nice to have this. But again, you don't want to go pointing this at people. However, the strobe feature I want to point out is a good deterrent for somebody that may be running at you or trying to attack you. It should stun them just a little bit. Now, adding the light adds a lot of weight to the bottom of this firearm. So when you fire the firearm, it should help the muzzle flip and bring the muzzle back down. So I'm curious to see how this is going to do in the range. So without further ado, let's take it to the range and see how it does. It could be a bit of a placebo effect, but personally, I felt like the muzzle flip was actually improved just ever so slightly with the weapon mounted light on the firearm. There are a couple of key features of this light that I really love. You can hold the button down and it will keep the light on, or you can just tap the button to activate the light and then tap it again when you want to deactivate it. Another key point is if you were to twist the cap just enough, it'll remove the contact patch from the battery so that you can't accidentally turn on the light and kill the battery. This is great for if you want to store the light or something similar. Last but not least, I absolutely love the tactile feeling that these buttons provide. They just feel really good to press. I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Let me know down below in the comments what your first modification was on your everyday carry. If you're new to the channel or even new to firearms, I hope you learned something from this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, stay safe and train hard.